How's it going, everyone? We are here to review Wild Card Round 1. Aaron Rodgers, Eli Manning, Matt Moore, the stars, the stars that match our league, the stars that bring us through, the quarterbacks. Matt Moore, Tom Savage, Brock Osweiler, Connor Cook, Ryan Nassib, Brett Hundley, Jake Rudock. The name power of these players really excite me for this slate. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to just go through and just cross out guys immediately with a big red marker.
Jake Rudock. I don't know. I think he's going to come in for the Giants. I think Stafford's going to get hurt.
Oh, dude, don't say that.
Yeah. So
Come on.
getting things started here. Aaron Rodgers, 8,600 against the Giants. Tough defense in Lambeau. Cold weather, not necessarily a great thing for the Packers. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, if you look on paper here, I think if this was a regular season game and we had a plural of other options, we'd probably be like, I don't know if Rodgers is worth the price or not this week. But 4-game slate, obviously an offense that's been rolling and hot. You look at Rodgers, what he's done of late, really outside that Chicago game where the Packers offense was fine. He just wasn't really a part of it. I mean, this is a guy who's been back-to-back 30-plus FanDuel point games, 8 touchdowns in the last 2, also tacked on a rushing touchdown. You look at him, I just think the offense is obviously going to flow through your best player. That's Rodgers, Nelson. And yeah, I mean, you look on paper, it's like, Giants don't allow a ton of passing touchdowns. They do rank in the bottom 10 in yards allowed, but their bend don't break. I mean, if we were on paper, we just take Mason Crosby and log out.
Yeah, essentially. So are you liking him as the top option, not only in terms of overall points, but in terms of value, or are you looking at someone else?
I like him. I like him a little bit because the FanDuel pricing structure is a little bit more lenient than DK. I feel a little bit more comfortable using him here. There still are some discounted guys. I mean, I like Big Ben for 100 less. I think he's a solid play. I'm curious to see the ownership between those two basically at the same price. And then you get into kind of Russell Wilson, who's $1,000 cheaper, who I like quite a bit in this matchup this week, being back at home where they're averaging basically 2 more touchdowns per game. So Rodgers certainly in play this week. You can certainly look at his options. Janoris Jenkins going to be on Jordy Nelson. Nelson's been in some tough matchups this season and has obviously come out on top, but Janoris Jenkins is pretty damn good.
He's what?
Pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good, huh? Well, I think a lot of the ownership's going to be with Roethlisberger and Rodgers. I think that's pretty straightforward, especially with, Pittsburgh being 10-point favorites at home. So I'd say, honestly, in a 4-game slate, 60 to 70% of the ownership's going to be there. No?
I would imagine, yeah. I really would between those two guys because, pricing really just doesn't tend to matter as much, given that there are cheap wideouts and cheap tight ends.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So then you kind of get into Eli Manning at 7,500. Obviously, you said you liked Russell Wilson, but Eli Manning 7,500 against the Packers, kind of getting the other end of that game. Is that something you're entertaining, or is it a little more of a DK only thing?
No, I like him here. I think he's still in play, just because there is a little bit of price difference. I do think Wilson is going to steal some of that. So, I mean, you may get out of those 4, Eli probably being your lowest owned. I think Roethlisberger, Rodgers, that's a toss-up, and then Wilson will come in third, and then you get Manning. So I think he's an interesting correlation play, because I think that game probably has the most to offer in terms of just correlation back and forth that you feel pretty good about. I mean, you can do it in other games as well, but you can get your Eli exposure through OBJ if you wanted to. But you also could go with the Giants just because that Packers secondary is really banged up, and it just depends if we get playoff Eli, then obviously I think 300 yards and two and more touchdowns is going to be there. But if we get regular season Manning, then he was horrible on the road.
Absolutely. Then you kind of get into the Matt Stafford, Matt Moore tier. Are either of those interesting to you, or are you just kind of sticking to the top four guys?
I'm sticking to the top four guys. I just don't think you need to do it here on FanDuel. We talked a bit on DK, but I think that's because the pricing difference was just so significant. You know, when you look, Russell Wilson's only 500 more than Stafford. Eli Manning's like 300 more, and obviously Matt Moore's sitting there at 6,900. For me, if I want correlation in those games, I'm going to be using guys like Marvin Jones, Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills. I'm not going to be going after their quarterbacks. So if you want to get the other side of the pie there, then for me, it's just going with the wide receivers.
Yeah, the upside with that Pittsburgh game sitting there kind of makes me want to fade any of those lower priced quarterbacks just because I think that upside for Roethlisberger is like 30 points. And, what's the absolute max Matt Moore can get? 17, 20?
Yeah, I
Absolute max. So, kind of tough to view this from a tournament sense and feel comfortable with it. So is there anything else you really want to go over? I'd imagine you're not in on Brock Osweiler at 6,700 or Connor Cook at 61.
Nah, staying away from those guys. Both are
Okay.
starting this week, but yeah, I'm off of them. Touch on Wilson real quick, just a little bit more. He's been better at home. So I think overall, you're just looking at him as kind of one of the, if you're not using Roethlisberger or Wilson, I think, or Rodgers, I think you can kind of come down and save a grand and be comfortable with Wilson there at home.
Absolutely. I think that's certainly an interesting move, but really just the top four are the guys I'm probably going to be getting exposure to. And as you mentioned, you get Golden Tate exposure, you get Marvin Jones exposure, even Eric Ebron, you get Landry and Devontae Parker exposure, even Hopkins or Cooper. But I don't think it's really viable to use these bottom end quarterbacks this week. Um, but hey, you know, yeah. So unless you're making 150 lineups, then YOLO.
Yeah,
That
roll out all
yeah,
your Connor Cook.
yeah, YOLO. Throwing a Jake Rudock too. um, as always, is there anything else you want to add in there, or
No,
Jason?
nope. No, it's not going to get
No,
better from here.
no, it's not. As always, you can check out Jason's article on the site at dailyfantasycafe.com. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like and subscribe. If you don't like what we're doing here, then log out and you already watched, so that's your problem. So as always, good luck, and we'll talk to you guys next week.